welcome everybody. Welcome those, particularly our guests online, for our first conversation with Zero Carbon Harrogate for each of our parliamentary candidates in the Harrogate and Knaresborough constituency. So just quickly to introduce ourselves, my colleague Jemima Parker is Chair of Zero Carbon Harrogate. I'm Tim Larner, I'm Vice Chair of Zero Carbon Harrogate, and a very warm welcome to Paul, who will no doubtless be able to introduce himself.
Yeah, I'm standing as an independent in the up-and-coming election. I believe it's important because I just think that I don't believe that the MPs currently represent their own constituency well enough. I actually see a really big disconnect between what the MPs doing, what the councillors are doing, what central government Whitehall is doing, and what the local council is doing. And I think that's got to really be pulled together. So that's one of my key issues. But the number one issue for me is the cost of living at the moment. And one of the challenges is that in this part of the world, we get about a third less than the average metro council per head. And that to me is outrageous, that we are getting less funding. There is something called the fair funding formula, which still, after 6-7 years, is still not in place. And so we are still not getting that fair funding. So to give you an example, on transport, we get a sixth spend a head compared to the South East. On education, we are ranked 143rd in the amount of money we get per pupil. And that's not right to me. And that's one of the things I want to go to Westminster. I'll be banging on the door saying, we need better services. Mm-hmm. But the other thing that caps it off for me is that our council tax is about 25% higher than the Met councils, and certainly somewhere like Wandsworth. And yet the ability to pay up here is not as strong as it is in London. Mm. And you know, if we just said, right, we'll just level out what you pay in council tax, then suddenly everybody had extra money in their pocket, and we wouldn't be feeling the cost of living crisis quite as badly as we do.
Mm. Paul, you jumped straight in with your politician's answer, which is great, but I think our listeners, our audience, will want to know a little bit about you. So can we jump back?
Yeah, sure.
Jump back in time a bit, if you like, and just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then you know what you're interested in, and what you're passionate about, and what you do when you're not standing as a parliamentary candidate.
Okay. See, I didn't think it was about me. See, I thought
I
thought this was about what we want to achieve. But
it's about both.
I've lived in Yorkshire now more than I lived in Lancashire. As my
That's the right answer for those.
Yeah,
being on the right side of the Pennines. Well done.
I've lived in lots of places, but I did grow up in Bolton, in Lancashire. But yeah, I moved to Leeds in '93 on a 6-month contract, and I got out of Leeds in 2003 and came to. Was it 2003? No, 2006. I came to Harrogate. Been in Harrogate since then. These days I run my own consultancy, which is around change management and change of pace. And I also do personal change. So I do executive coaching. So those are my work passions. I have a passion for, I'll call it saving the planet. And this has been something that's been with me for quite a while. I'm not quite sure when it really started, but in 2008, there's a picture somewhere of me actually selling jute bags in the supermarket car park. In 2008, I also started keeping bees because I read an article that bees were dying out, so I now have about 10 colonies at home. Mm. I'm an animal lover, I've got dogs,
Tell us a bit about your political journey, because I think that's quite interesting and has unfolded in recent months, but maybe it's started further back than that. I don't know.
So yeah, it's one of those things where so something happened in late 2000s, sort of 2008, 2009. I suddenly discovered that the field next to my house, which I actually own, was suddenly in the local plan. I thought, and I discovered at that point that people can put planning application in for anywhere. You don't have to own it. You have to own it in order for the planning permission to go through, effectively, in the end. But they can actually get your land designated. And I didn't understand it. And that started me thinking. I also, around that time, was very keen, perhaps, to be an MEP. Very much, I'm very much a European. I don't necessarily feel I'm a Brit. I feel I'm sort of European. And that was something I wanted to do, but I found that the system didn't really work in terms. I don't know if you ever looked at the European elections and how they worked, but within each party, you voted for a party, and then there was a hierarchy. Anyway, but going back from that, then in 2013-ish, the Conservative Party approached me and said, "Would I stand as a councillor?" So that's where I stood for Harrogate, the Bilton area of Harrogate, and that's how I started off. And I got stuck in on learning because I sort of doing a lot of coaching work. I understand the way to do accelerated learning, and a lot of it's by sort of quite deep immersion. So I learned my subject and then immerse myself in that, which I use the same technique. In 2017, I decided that I needed to go to the county council. Two real reasons for that. The first reason was they wanted to build a relief road through Mid Gorge. I wasn't having any of that, and neither was anybody around my way. So that was where. So I needed to get on the county council, even though it was a Conservative that was trying to push it through. But I needed to be on the council. I needed to understand what was going on, so that we could then fight that battle, and we were successful in the end. And we fought that. The other thing, that if you're a borough councillor, what you find on the door is everybody asks you a county council question. They never ask you anything about what the borough council is responsible for, except for bins. Bins, of course, is always the popular one, but the county was always responsible for roads. And potholes are still one of the best topics on the doorstep today.
Yeah.
And that's how. So that was the journey. Obviously, we've had various things like COVID, etc., but and that's protracted. But I'm still there. And then a number of things happened. I also had to chair, and I've chaired for 5 years, scrutiny of transport for the north. So everything about HS2, about how we decarbonise the whole of the north of England, how we have a very inclusive bus, public transport, train service, so everybody can access it. Maybe a miscellaneous party fact, but 93% of all freight in the north of England goes by road because the trains aren't suitable. And
you've left the party structure now.
Yeah, I left it. Yeah, so I left the party primarily because the Conservatives started making decisions that made no sense. So, for example, they decided to drop HS2. Now, they dropped Leeds, then they dropped the Manchester piece. The Manchester piece included 80 miles of what I'd call transport in the north. And but HS2 was never ever about speed. And people said, why do I need to be 10 minutes faster to London? Nothing to do with speed. It was always to do with capacity. And they ditched it, and it made no sense. I was actually given a talk at the Conservative Party conference on how good HS2 would be. For every pound we spent on it, we'd get £8 back. And halfway through my talk, that it was axed. So that was one thing. Then they rolled back on EVs. And if you look at the manifesto that comes out this week or has come out today, I think you'll find they've rolled back on other stuff. And it just got to a point where the party left me. They went to the right, which is the right. They went further to the right, and that's not where I am politically. I'm sort of probably very centre, but on climate change, there can't be any compromise on climate change. We've got to tackle it. And we can see all the problems. So that's why I chose to leave. I chose to leave because there wasn't. The party moved. there was a rollback on climate change, and bits that they were doing, it wasn't fast enough for me, and we've got to do things at pace.
That's a long journey. Thank you. I'll hand over to Jemima and we can sort of pick apart.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I mean, it's interesting you're saying that about you being involved for transport for the north, and it would be interesting to hear what you feel the decarbonisation solution should be for this area for transport, for the constituency for transport.
So if we just take this part of the world, the key thing here is, the key thing for North Yorkshire is in fact only 3% of the population of North Yorkshire has access to a train. So you've got to turn around and say it's really got to be buses. So how are we going to do the buses? So the most, and this actually cuts to really the chase in terms of, because you can get an integrated, by integrated I mean if the bus arrives to drop you off just as the train is about to go, not just after it's gone, and the trains come in when the buses are about to go, so you've got that integrated system. In Harrogate, the centre of town, and I was hoping Station Gateway would actually get to that, would be a major transport hub where you could move from active travel to car to bus to train. And for the whole north of England, the plan is that you have transport hubs right across. So therefore, that people have a smooth transition from whatever they want to whatever they need to do next. And you can hire your bike or whatever it is, or you can take your bike with you. So that in essence is a picture of what we want to do. But for North Yorkshire itself, there's a lack of rail as such, and rail will take such a long time. So it's got to be a bus solution. If you go to Liverpool right now, they're trialling hydrogen buses, and I think hydrogen buses will probably end up being the right solution for us. I think it's a combination. I think in urban areas you can use batteries because you've got access, but we also have to be much more imaginative about public transport. At the moment, we have a central bus station, but I don't understand why there can't be buses stationed at, say, the hospital. I don't, we need to look at the routes need to be where people want to go. And how do you get to your doctor's surgery? And we've got to provide it all at a price. And that's the other thing, is you've got to provide a price that people can afford and be prepared to afford. We should have park and ride. But one of the things I was looking at, well, if you're in Bilton, if you're a family of 4 and you want to go into the town centre, it's £2 each way for your family, each member of your family. So that could be £8 each way. Well, they could even get a taxi for that. So we've got to find a way of pricing it so that people don't necessarily have to have the cost of ownership of the car. But the biggest challenge at the moment for people going on public transport actually is trust. People don't trust the transport to get them from where they want to be to where they want or need to be. So if you elect work 3 times, you can imagine what impact that's going to have on your job. So it's an integrated transport system.
And for freight, because again, you mentioned freight earlier on, is again a lot of our carbon emissions come from the A1M as a district. So yeah.
So again, if we've already got one hydrogen fuel station on the north part of the A1. And I think that hydrogen trucks will be the answer, because they have to have that power. The other thing is, if you fuel something with hydrogen, it's the same length of time as you'd be used to if you were filling your car with petrol. So I believe hydrogen will come in. It will come in there, and there's all these other efficiencies, because the move to electric vehicles has come up with some astonishing changes in technology. I mean, the number of moving parts in an electric vehicle compared to a combustion engine, whether it's hydrogen combustion or whether it's hydrogen fuel cell, it could be hydrogen combustion. There's a number of different things. JCB, I think, are doing hydrogen combustion. But again, that will give us an opportunity to decarbonise that. The other thing, of course, is that freight. you need to have a way of breaking it down. And some of the things that we're doing within the local plan right now, which I'm asking for, is that we actually appreciate freight for what it is, and we must make places where people can park up. There aren't enough service stations where they can park overnight. How do you break it down into small bulks so that it gets into the town centres and gets delivered to the shops, etc. So there's a number of things around that. And then if we talk transport within Harrogate, I think the delivery of active travel is disappointing, to say the least. We have so many advantages there, but we don't seem to have delivered. If I go back to the relief road at the moment, I've still got 2 big wads of paper, probably about that big, of all the work that the consultants did at that time, around what the traffic is, the traffic modelling, which of course has all got changed because of COVID. It's changed the traffic quite dramatically. But also when the relief road was ended as an idea, how we were going to reduce congestion by changing things. I mean, a simple thing at the moment is the congestion in Harrogate. When they did the work, I think 63% of all journeys were less than 2 miles, and that's what causes the congestion in the town. So how do we, for example, school run, 50% of all school students actually want to cycle to school, but only 4% do. That's because mums don't want their children to cycle to school, quite rightly. Some of the roads are very, very dangerous. But if we actually could do a major switch and say, right, that 50% are all going to, suddenly you take an enormous number of cars off the road, and suddenly it'd be a safer place to be. So there's a number of different game changes we can do. And of course, I'm always campaigning for my train station at Clara Road, which would actually take as many journeys a year by my calculations, say Hornbeam Park. So it would be successful, it would be taking about 400,000 journeys a year.
Thank you, Paul. It's good to touch on some of the kind of local specific things. And I'm conscious that the number of new build homes that we have is in the area is a very hot topic. And I just wondered what your views and your policies would be in terms of pressing for decarbonisation for both new build homes, but also thinking about how we reduce the energy demand for our existing homes, which obviously ties into thinking in terms of the cost of living, because a lot of people are spending a lot on energy bills at the moment.
So one of the things I pointed out to the council is that actually building regs are the minimum standard that is set. And in the past, it's been argued that, oh, well, you've got Harrogate, and then you've got Craven, and you've got York over here. And if you actually just say our building standards are higher, because it's a double-edged sword, we have to build so many houses, but builders won't bother coming here. They'll go and build in Craven, or they'll go build in York. Well, now we're actually all one entity, at least North Yorkshire is and York is. York already has higher building standards than ours. So I've been talking to all the councillors saying that we need to put higher standards in. What I'd really like is that I will be lobbying government that we just say, hey, right, we're just going to upgrade the standards tomorrow, because for every new house we build right now, it's another one to retrofit, and that to me makes no sense at all. So I would like the standards to be ramped up yesterday, if I could just flick a switch. And there's a number of people that were saying that across the country, and that for me is the number one thing there, that you need to do it straight away. The other thing that I'm pushing for on the local plan at the moment is that every house has what I'll call equal access to various types of transport, so you can get active travel. We don't want any more housing estates where you can't get a bus into it. I mean, it's ludicrous. And so it will have access to the bus as well as the car. So you actually already develop things in a way in which they've got access to different transport methods as well. But getting those standards up, we know that it would reduce on current prices something like the energy cost would be about 2/3, less than £1,000 a year. And that's critical. So that cost of living thing. In terms of the retrofit, I would very much see retrofit in two sides. The first one is that we actually have a number of what I'd call captive markets. So if we were to talk to, I think it's the housing association, I think they have 50, 60,000 houses, and that could actually be used to what I would say pilot, and not only pilot but establish a good retrofit organisation. But the other side of it is, because what I hear from the retrofit companies is that the supply chain is very difficult, so I don't understand why we don't manufacture a lot of the stuff here. So you could actually create two businesses on that, and you could build that as well. So yeah, I'd like to see both of those actions taken. And I think they're, for want of a better phrase, I think they're relatively easy actions to do. Obviously it needs some seed capital, but if you've actually got, as I said, you've got those 50,000 houses, you've actually got a good start.
Because I think we'll have to put you in touch with our retrofit manager, John Kerr, who has been working in this area for the last 2 years and has identified quite a few challenges in it, but also making an amazing progress in actually upskilling some of our local tradespeople so that we're actually filling that skill gap. So,
and of course, you hit on the other thing, which is skills. Skills. We need to make sure people have the right skills, because technology is changing. I'm not sure what you teach a 5-year-old right now that's going to gear them up for when they're 20. What skills they're going to need. It's very hard to predict what they're going to need in that time.
Yeah, as well. Our society is changing fast and will continue to change faster as the impacts of climate change come in. So we might want to kind of move on to thinking about that in terms of, because there's so many different policy areas we could cover, but adapting to our already changed climate. Have you got any thoughts on that, or any policies that you would push for that would benefit Harrogate and Knaresborough?
So, well, the big thing for me is that I would have said, we can go urban first. So my view is we have a problem with water, and by 2034, we're probably going to get more continuous rain throughout the winter than we had even this year. We had a lot this year. I think we had 12 floods or 12 storms that came in that had names. So I think every house, whether it's to be built or is already built, should have water butts. I think we have to mitigate that surface water and slow it down. So I think that, and in actual fact, in the southeast of England, some of the water companies are actually doing that onto their houses. So it slows the flow. So I think that's an obvious urban thing to do. But I think the more serious part is probably what it's doing to farming and our food security. And that's where we really have to work. And I think we need to work very closely with the farmers as to how we know they need to move to regenerative farming, because we've only got so many years of good soil left. So we have to do that. But we also have to stop the runoff from the soil, because that's taking the goodness out of the soil as well. So we've got to look very much about flood defences, either up in the moors and the dales, and that will impact on parts of Harrogate. And it's important that we do that, because we're very good at food here, but even the best farmer in the world's not going to be able to plant when there's 6 inches of water across his fields. So we've got to work hard on how we mitigate all those different things now. And of course, it causes trouble too. Just roads. I mean, roads have been swept away this year. People's houses get damaged. So there's a lot to do there, and it has to be a priority.
Thank you, Paul. I was going to say, going back to a kind of more traditional topic for climate action, thinking about our energy supplies. And at the moment, we in the Harrogate and Knaresborough district, constituency, and I should say, we generate very little of our own energy. We're importing most of our energy. have you any comments on how we could, what kind of policies we would need in order to ensure that we are decarbonising our local energy supply?
Yeah, so I think we need to do some radical thinking on this. And one of the things is that we have to maximise every property that we've built, all the urban pieces. And I think that we should probably find, we need to look at how we do, for example, solar panels differently. I think when they first put solar panels out, they said you had to have a certain EPC for your house, etc. But if you actually, that didn't matter, and you just said, for example, I'm just going to put solar panels on every house in Bilton. It's actually, they're all going to be linked to the panels all be linked together to generate an energy that goes into a central pot, rather than trying to do the sophisticated thing of having it into your own house. So, for example, I have solar panels, and I think I have 11.5 kilowatt generation, and that goes into, I've actually got, I think, 3 inverters, I think they're called, and that converts the energy from DC to AC, so then it can go into my system. But in actual fact, if you just had lots of these panels across houses, then and there was a way of linking it, then I think that would be a way to start generating. And I think we have to look at more imaginative ways of generating in an urban setting. And also, we have to maximise the footprint of where we've already built and developed. For me, and I heard of one today, there's a solar farm development that's going out on land. Now, I don't know how good it is, but that land is 200 acres. That's a big solar farm, and it'll be fabulous in terms of what it generates. But what's it preventing? And that's my concern. So I just think, and warehouses, we should be able, so when I was working in London in I think I did this in 2017, we put a 100 kilowatt array on the warehouse where I was working, and actually it was a Yorkshire company I used actually to do it.
So
would you allow more onshore wind?
I think there's a place for onshore wind. People say it makes a lot of noise, but I've got to say I don't know the answer to that. But what I do know right now is, if we're talking about wind, is the turbines in the North Sea are switched off at night, and we need to be looking at how we can store that. Now, whether we store it as hydrogen, which I think is the most likely thing we should be doing, but in actual fact, those turbines we're already paying for that electric that they're not generating. And that to me seems like a huge travesty, and surely we should just invest a little bit more money in order to actually flush out the full value of what we've already built. And I really don't understand why we've not really got onto the hydrogen generation piece. And that could, obviously it's not necessarily generating it here, in terms of, but at least it is bringing it in. And if we can make green hydrogen, because brown hydrogen is very, very expensive as far as CO2 is concerned, then that would be something I would be wanting to look at. We've also got to look at the distribution network operators, because they.
I was just going to ask you about that, because it's great to say that we want more solar on all roof spaces, etc. But actually, a lot of companies and organisations are finding that actually getting connected to the grid is a problem. So, I was going to say, what policies would you like to see in place to unblock those challenges?
I believe they've started to unblock them. From what I understand, sort of the way they actually took on projects with, I might have a 2 solar panel array. Somebody else might have 100, and somebody else over there might have 50 gigawatt worth. But they took the project as they came in, rather than actually saying, we're actually going to have a funnel here for the big projects that are 40 or 50 gigawatt. And then this is for the domestic, and they mix the two. So that's part of the problem. So they need to really sort of so hopefully they've unpicked a lot of that, but there is an awful lot of capital investment that needs to be done. The other thing I think we need to think about on this is where we put the solar. So, for example, if you come to me with a project, the first question, or you know, sort of, the council puts projects to get forward. For example, it says, "Oh, we'd like some over here," but the nearest access point is over here, and I think we have to ask intelligent questions that say, well, if we put it here, we can't connect. But if there's a way we can put it here, we can connect. Which is why I think the roofs, actually, there's lots of places and lots of generators and electricity stations in the urban environment, and that's why I think they will probably get easier access.
So yeah, more strategic planning, part of the local plan. Yeah.
Okay, we're coming towards the end of our time, but two quick ones. So short answers, please, if possible.
Yeah.
We'll assume you into Westminster in a month's time. How do we get the best out of you as our new MP in that situation? How do we call you to account and kind of check that you're doing all of this stuff?
So the first thing is that my main sort of slogan or whatever is that I'm going to be listening and serving. So one of the key things is I'm going to be coming back. I'm going to have regular, whether you call them town hall meetings, whatever you want to call them, but I'm going to have regular meetings. But the other thing I intend to do is I would go to the council, the full council meeting, whether it's online or in person. So I'm keeping my finger on the pulse there. I'd be attending the area constituency committees probably online because they're usually on a day of the week. But I would be involved. I'd be talking to the mayor. I'd be talking to the other, I think there are nine MPs in the area, as well as the mayor, and saying, look, what are we doing? How are we pulling together for this area? So it's all about engagement for me, and it's about and I would be running some form of log to help people keep an eye on what I'm doing.
And what would you say to us in terms of future partnership and how we best work with you and support you and help you in your new job?
So climate change is a big issue. We have to tackle it. One of the things that I have a challenge with is that we have a lot of MPs that I would say are not experts in. I don't regard myself as an expert, but in sort of climate technology. But I do regard myself as reasonably good at project management, at seeing things through, at realising that things have to be delivered on time to a budget, which is something that can be seen alien, perhaps public bodies. And so I'd be looking for you for knowledge, ideas, what the cutting edge is, how I could work with you so that we can actually get your ideas in. So and we've got this route map to carbon negative, which we need to really update. And the critical thing on that is it needs to be monitored, measured. It needs to have proper governance, which it doesn't have currently. And I would like to see you guys saying, hey, we're not keeping to it, or we need more accountability on this, more transparency.
Okay. Thank you very much, Paul. That's been very helpful and very interesting. I've certainly learnt new things
yes,
today.
Yes, indeed, and we're looking forward to welcome you to our hustings event on Wednesday, the 19th of June. So looking forward to meeting all the candidates. Well, not quite all the candidates. Sorry, all those candidates who have accepted our invitation to that. So. Thank you for agreeing to be with us on that date too, 19th of June.
So thank you very much for your time. Thank you for all of those who've joined us today online. We realise you're a very busy person, so thank you for taking a chunk out of your day today. Best wishes with the rest of your campaign. Thank you.